Welcome back to Living Resonance. I'm Monifa, and today we are exploring the cosmic current of the gene keys and the lunar cycle. So you can cultivate your voice, live your genius, and weave your legacy in harmony with the current frequencies. So we're currently in the lunar phase of the new moon in Scorpio, which is gene key 14, and it's also human design gate 14. And in this, we are experiencing the themes of the shadow of compromise, the gift of bounteousness, competence, the gift of competence, and the Siddhi, Siddhi, of bounteousness. This is the genius of enthusiasm. And so we are going to talk a little bit about the keys of success up in this one today. So, as usual, we like to start with quantum human design, get a little bit of wisdom from Karen Curry Parker, who is a human design expert who created her own system called quantum human design. And in gate 14, she calls it creation, right? And she's talking about how the challenge here is making yourself, forcing yourself into new opportunities to make money or to overwork so that you can be successful or make money, right? And the hard part about this is that you don't learn to notice the right resources. So resources that are actually resourceful, that aren't actually draining you from overworking, overexerting, right? And ultimately, you are able to notice true work, which real work is actions that feel meaningful, that feel like you can come from the heart, that can you can be enthusiastic about. Huh? 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 So yeah, so that is pretty much where we're gonna go, where we're going to be going with the gene keys as well. Sometimes these can be a little like there's different branches of the perspective that sometimes fruit in these two different minds. But in this one, we're really on the same page here. So in that shadow of compromise, gift of competence, and the city of bounteousness, we're talking about radiating prosperity. That's the potential of this frequency energy, right? And it is also the ring of fire. It's a codon ring of fire. Again, these are actual codon rings in the DNA strand when we're talking about these elements of the gene keys. So that's kind of fun. Of course, they are named by Richard Rudd. You're not going to find Ring of Fire in the genealogy book, right? But yeah, they are named by him, but they are definitely the codon rings that are recognized as part of the how amino acids develop in the DNA strand. So yeah, and then we have the title of the shadow section, which is the leaking wagon. Now, I don't really remember how Richard Rudd talks about this in the book, but how I see this in my head is that if like a wagon of goods was rolling down the street trying to make it, or path, trying to make it to the next town or village to maybe, sell the goods and whatnot, that kind of thing. And then you just see each apple falling out of the wagon as they're going down the street. So losing that potentiality of full maximization of resources, right? Which is prosperity. And and this is kind of how we learn or how we start developing holes in our learning of how we can make things happen. This is the Ring of Fire. One of the reasons why I wanted to point that out in a big way this week is because the full moon of this month was the Ring of Water. And remember, I talked about this new moon is the ring of fire. And those are automatic dualities that exist in many different systems, the four element systems and the five element systems of astrology that talk about those two as the duality that it creates the alchemization of transformation, right? In that, is the possibility of great manifestation happening. Magic is what we like to call that around here. So it's the knowledge that we are being given the resources. And when we are appreciative of that, we can get enthusiastic. You know what I'm saying? We can create some prosperity out of that truth. And what happens in the shadow frequency when we're real in the, not the shadow frequency, but the shadow of that low vibrational feeling is that we learn to question our ideas. How does that happen? Well, we get conditioned by school saying that there's only one way to do things. You have to go get the degree in this exact way, and it has should have these, and you should have recommendations and all the things that you learn that you have to have in order to succeed. And then maybe the same way from your family, or even having self-doubt sewed into you from family if you were lucky enough to have that experience. So, in that way, we start learning to question our ideas and our dreams. We question what's possible for us to create ultimately at all, right? Like, or if we can create anything at all, right? And so that's where the shadow starts showing its head, is because this is the frequency is the potentiality. But if we don't perceive it, then we start losing the apples in the apple cart, right? So, in the nature of this frequency, it gives us the sense of living without a personal freedom, like the truth of our own sovereignty, essentially, and not believing in your own uniqueness, so that you have special qualities that can allow you to be prosperous. So also we could be trying to act more from action than spirit, when the truth of us is spirit. We are spirit before we are bodies, right? And then if we're acting in that, we're becoming more and more challenged in our ability to create. You see what I'm saying? See what I did there? Right? So the shadow here is basically saying that you feel like you're constantly compromising who you are, right? So compromise. Work as drudgery. You're only doing it because you need the money. You're only doing it because it pays the bills, right? If you can never enjoy the work you're doing, if it's only about paying the bills, then you can never really excel. So this is one of the principles that we're going to talk about of our ability to succeed. We're going to talk about that in a minute, okay? So the fear here that compromises the frequency is that life is meaningless, and that we basically are just, we can't we can't work our way out of the life of the drudgery of the rat race of the, right? That kind of thing. So it basically chips away out of our ability to live differently than maybe we're seeing around us, or what we were told, right? The conditioning. So in the programming partner, it tells us immediately what that creates. That's what I love about the programming partner. If we get a chance or time to talk about it, the programming partner 414 is 8. And 8 in the gene keys in the shadow is mediocrity. So that's what it creates. When you feel like you have to compromise who you are to survive instead of thrive and prosper, mediocrity is the result. Okay. So fun with that, right? Fun with that. Now we have other potentials, but first we got to understand how it plays out. How do we know we're acting in the shadow here? That on the repressive side, if we're trying to repress the feelingness, that this energy, then it becomes impotent. So that's the name of this shadow and the repressive energy, impotent. And I have a quote here. The more one compromises, the more you feel that you are powerless to escape. Yeah, the more you feel powerless to escape. So, yeah, that is the quote here. So basically, yeah, the more that you compromise, the more it's like kind of something pressing down on your spirit, and you just feel like you can't get anything done. Anybody who's lived this or is living this understands this deeply. It feels like there's no way you can chip yourself out of that hole, right? There's no way you can, climb up the top of that ladder out of the hole. There's no way you're going to break through the surface of the pool, of the ocean or whatnot, right? It feels like you're stopped up. And he literally talks about how this energy gets choked up the more we compromise it. So the energy that we do have to prosper gets choked up or choked down, so it doesn't ever come out. This happens from going along with whatever happens. You're just like, ah, whatever, I guess, whatever. It doesn't matter because life is meaningless, right? And not having the courage to stand up for your own uniqueness. So that's also means for some of us who are a little neurodivergent, like myself, but it means that you're not willing to like talk about why you need what you need to be supported, and you're not willing to, or you don't even have the courage because you might even think it's still something to be ashamed of, right? So it's like, oh, I don't want to bother you because I have a problem. That's the way it feels. When uniqueness is actually one of the best ways you can contribute to the team or to the prosperity. Prosperity is not a singular personal thing in Gene Keys. It's something that happens amongst the group, whether the team, the community, or the whole. Like it's something that is you can't consider yourself prosperous unless it is creating prosperity around you in the gene keys. Okay. So that's the truth of how that goes. So our uniqueness, even in those things that we sometimes wish we didn't have to deal with, are the ways in which we serve and help the rest of who we get in contact with, our families, our societies. Okay. On the reactive side, if you're reacting to this energy, you're just like, rah, da, this frequency, I don't know about this thing, right? That is the reaction of enslaved. So that's the name given to this one. It's working hard to prove yourself in a path that isn't yours, right? So that is pretty much what it is. I can't really over explain that. That is what it is. Working hard to prove yourself in a path that isn't yours. And this, you can see this happen if it's coming up as an emotion. Sometimes it'll come up in frustration and rage at being stuck, because it's going to create that same sense of kind of choked up stuckness, right? So, in the evolution, how do we get out of that feeling? If we're feeling any of that, then we're just like, okay, shadow is living here. It's a thing. It's happening. How do I get out of it? A lot of these keys don't always have like a road out. It's kind of like you just gotta choose. You gotta, especially the will ones, like you just gotta decide, right? On this one, we have a little framework here that's gonna walk you out of this belief or perception of the shadow. So anything that you find tedious, anything that you find tedious, think of it as an action or a job. So if the job itself is tedious, you're just like, this job is stupid, right? Then that's tedious job, right? So instead of just thinking about the job in and of itself, by itself, think of it as a stepping stone to what you dream of or what you desire. So if you hate washing dishes, think of it as a stepping stone to having beautifully pristine dishes that you can enjoy an amazing meal on, right? And not have to worry about what is that mark there, right? So you could just think of it as a way to the desire, way to the dream that you want to experience in your life, right? So that is the key. So it can be a small steps, like a baby steps sometimes with the jobs because we've built up resentment over time, sometimes over those things. So you can, as you go, be like, oh yeah, I'm learning the skill to deal with difficult people so that when I do my dream job, I can dot, 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 right? That kind of thing. So when you turn it into genius, it becomes competence, which doesn't sound sexy, right? But if you look at the title of this section, it's called Fire in the Belly. Remember, we're dealing with the ring of fire, right? So it's that fire in the belly. What is that? What is that? I can automatically kind of get that sensation. It's that feeling of like a little bit of excitement, a little bit of energy, a little bit of ooh, right? It is loving what you are doing not what you're going to do, not what you wish you could do, what you are doing in the now moment, and includes the keys to success. So these are the four keys of success named in this chapter: efficiency, enthusiasm, flair, and flexibility. So efficiency, right? Like you're able to do things in a manner that only you can do. You're efficient in the way that you get things done when you are on fire, when you have that fire in the belly, right? Enthusiasm, enjoying what you do. So doing things with an aplomb of just like, oh, like radiant energy, and everybody just loves being around you. You know, these people like some of the people that are the best at this are caretakers, which are like if you've ever seen a nurse's aide that just is always smiling and like, how are you doing today, Mrs. Robinson? And like they're just bouncing around. And their day is mostly, cleaning up other people's stuff. You know what I'm saying? And yet they are radiant, and people love them so much a lot of times that they end up leaving them their, things in their will. That's how much of that energy just kind of pops off of people when they are truly in that enthusiasm of service, right? And of course, like that, I'm sure you can only but appreciate that when you feel like, you know, you're not able to do as much for yourself, right? Flair, it comes from the fire in the belly too. That flair comes from I do it the way I do it. So the way I am efficient, I do it with my special flair. You don't really question the way you do things so much because you know you do it the way you do it and it works, right? You just know what works. And that's how you know in the right place or the right positioning and you're really approaching it from a place of how do I do this thing, right? That's where some of that efficiency comes from, but it's also how we do it with style. So flair is actually coming from that programming partner of eight, which the gift there is style. We do it in our unique way, in a way that is highly functional and is satisfies the goal or completes the goal, right? And flexibility. So flexibility, y'all. I thought I did maybe I didn't. Let me see. This is it. I found it. Okay. The key to efficiency is the ability to switch spontaneously between creativity and receptivity, which means that it's self-adjusting at the same time as acting. This gift is simultaneously listening and responding to its environment. So inside your body, this awareness corresponds to the solar plexus area, which is a biophysical zone that dictates how centered you feel at any given moment. So this is what we talk about. We're talking about resiliency and stability, right, within our emotional framework so that we can take big emotional things that may cause a lot of emotion and then feel the emotion and also still move and keep acting in a resourceful and respondent way. So that's where that flexibility comes from. That's why I was saying, like when I first read, I was like, ooh, flexibility. Yes, I understand the importance of flexibility as an artist, as a musician, as somebody who's done live performance. You have to be flexible because things happen that you don't know what's going to happen. And that is also life. You cannot know what you're always going to expect. And as the more world gets faster and crazier, we have to be able to be flexible. So where does that flexibility come from? Is what I just stated from that quote, which I think is useful for those of us who are doing this work. We kind of need to know these things because we need to understand when we're not allowing ourselves to be flexible, when we're not accessing the energy that allows for fire in the belly. And a lot of the work that I do with my clients is being able to just be able to tell the difference. How do I know I'm in aligned energy and how do I know when I'm not? How do I know when I have access to my superpowers and or my genius and when I don't, right? So that's part of what's so important about this understanding. Fabulous, fabulous. So for the new moon, new Scorpio, we do have a couple questions for you. You can journal these suckers out so that you can be able to do a little bit more there. So here we go. First question. Where do the four keys to success naturally occur in your life? So where do they not naturally happen? And if you're, and so this is one of those things, sometimes we have forgotten where they've naturally occurred. This is why a lot of people say, well, go back to your childhood or go back to when you were younger and you were just so curious or so enthralled with a thing that you like to do or a thing that you like to learn or a thing that you like to observe even, right? Like, so if it's not available to you in your now time and space, then maybe travel back in time and see what else has happened for you in that way. What naturally gave you that fire in the belly, that enthusiasm, because you can always pivot. You can always pivot, right? So you might can pivot into another job. You never know. Sometimes the one thing that you thought you couldn't do is the easiest thing to access because nobody's looking in that direction because it's unique to you, right? Or how you put things together in the job you already have. Maybe again, there's a specific thing that maybe if you learned a little bit more would give you a better ability to advance or even go into another company in an advanced job, right? These are the ways that our minds understand more, or not our minds, but our spirits understand more than our minds how the potential or possibility is available to be abundant, to be in this prosperity, right? And so if you really can't think back that far, you can only see maybe those conditioning of what isn't possible to in your childhood, in your past, then this next question might help you out a little bit too. So are you already burnt out? So that might help you. Sometimes just acknowledging that you've already used up that force. You've already used up your fire, right? You might have been, sitting on it and choking it out for a while now. It might be have gotten doused a bit by that, thinking that if you worked harder and you just kept working harder and harder and harder, that it would work, which a lot of us find out the hard way that that doesn't work, right? So you might have some water on that fire, some of that ring of water on that shadow side, right? That would have just doused it instead of turning it into elemental steam you know, of alchemy, right? So in that case, I have a little suggestion for you. Find the thing that's most immediately at hand, that's easily, like it's around you, whether that's a thought, whether that's something you like to do, like lighting a candle or, going running or something, just anything. It's the smallest things count in this regard. If you feel burnt out, you first have to find the thing that feels restorative and do more of that. And then the more you do of that, the more you'll see other things that also feel restorative. And the more you do of those things, the more you're going to get some energy back into the belly that's going to lead you into the truth of where you naturally find success in your life. So that's my little understanding that I want to send to you. And remember. Yeah, if you have anything if you don't have anything and you can't think of anything, there is the Almont's method that is in these videos. So if you go to maybe some of the earlier videos for the year, or if you go into my voice videos, my voice lesson videos, we do an exercise that will immediately bring you back into a place where you can get into restoration, right? It's a vagus nerve, somatic, breath, and voice exercise that gets you there in 5 minutes or less if you do it by yourself without all my instructions, right? And it really is powerful. And if you can start giving that to yourself, If you can give those 5 minutes to yourself, maybe between everything you do, between the events or between going to work or between, making the meal, whatever you're doing for the day, you're going to start to feel a difference. I promise. I'm testing it scientifically and I really know that it works. Okay. So, in closing, please do check out the link in the description. It's the Gene Keys on Gaia. So if you've ever been interested in Gaia, it'll give you a little time to check it out and see if you wanted to go ahead and make it one of your show outlets. I don't know what they call them nowadays. Channels. That's what they used to call them. But now, but now they're just kind of little app stores. But either way, I love it. My husband and I use it every night for meditation. There's so many different meditations on there. But it also has a nice series on the Gene Keys with Richard Rudd that I think anybody would get a lot out of and love. So check it out if you're interested. And I will see you on the next moon, a full moon. And yeah, enjoy your life. Find some enthusiasm. Until then, see you next time.